right, so thank you all for coming. I know we've all had a little bit busy weeks and things coming up, but I appreciate you all coming. So we are going to be going over the basics of PowerPoint, how to create a slide, and what that looks like. So if you have a computer, great. If you don't have a computer, sit close to someone who does so you can see their screen and what we're doing and hopefully still learn everything. Also, we are in a smaller group, so if I'm going too fast or if you have a question, just feel free to interrupt me and we can stop and make sure everyone's understanding everything. So to start, you can open up your PowerPoint program. Typically, it will look like this when you open it up. It has themes at the top and all of your recent documents underneath that panel. If you want, you can choose a theme directly from the top themes, or you can also click More Themes and then choose a different theme from there, depending on what you're creating it for. So we're going to act like we're creating this for the church. So I am just scrolling down to see what I think maybe looks most like what would be good. Some of the themes you can customize the colors, but not all of them. So there might be a bit of trial and error. I'm gonna go ahead and choose the Wisp theme, just because I see that it has that maroon red color, like that the church uses a lot. So if you have that theme, does everyone have that? Can you see it? Internet's not working.
On internet, we have the ANNet. So if you need the password, bring your computer, wave me over and I can connect you.
So, is yours, Diana, already on? It's not. Okay, bring it here. And I can add it too. Steve, is yours good? Okay. Let's go to settings. Okay, you're connected. Okay, so you should be good now, and then I'm not seeing like themes on yours. New? Okay, there we go. So you actually have different themes that I don't have. So let's see if we can type in Wisp. Okay, so there you go. There's your theme. Okay, so on Diana's, it actually gives her different color options. When I clicked, so depending on what version of PowerPoint you have, sometimes that's why the themes look different. So while Wisp was like on mine right away, I had to search it on hers to find it. So once I found it, now it's popping up a window saying what color theme do you want to use with that one. So some of them have that, some of them don't. So on hers, maybe we'll pick this one because it has, I don't know, maybe some of the colors of the church, and then we click create. Okay. So you can take that back now. Yeah. Okay, so at the top, is everyone on now and you have a theme chosen? You're good, Steve? Yeah. Okay. So after we have our theme chosen, just to orient ourselves with the program and the dashboard and where things are, the first thing we're going to go over is called the ribbon. So the ribbon is this top section here that has all of your controls in it. You can see there's different tabs at the top. So anything that you want to do is going to be found in that top ribbon. And that ribbon translates across the different Microsoft applications. So Word has a similar thing. What are the other Microsoft applications? Word, PowerPoint, yeah, Excel, Bing Publisher. I haven't used that in forever. So anyways, so that's your ribbon. So the Home tab at the top here is going to have the most common tools that you would use. So typically when I'm creating a PowerPoint, most of the time I'll be right here on this Home tab. Occasionally I have to use a different tab, but things like File are at the top so that you can save your presentation if you want to save it. So we'll go ahead and click Save, and we will put it on the Mac. And for this, I'm just going to put it on the desktop so we know easily where it's at. And we're going to do sample presentation is what we will call it. And then we click Save. You do have file format options, but typically when you just leave it on the standard one that it defaults to, that'll be the best thing. But you can know that it's there. So if someone for some reason can't open your PowerPoint file, it might be because of file formatting issues, and so that's where you would be able to change that when you save it. Okay. So the next tab we want to look at is the Insert tab, which is to the right of Home. And Insert is like an all-in-one tool to add every imaginable type of content, like tables or charts or pictures or text boxes or video, anything like that. So under Insert, we can click Table, we could do pictures, you can do a screenshot, but anything if you want to place on your slide, you would use that Insert tool. And so you can even do fun things like word art, so you can mess around with that stuff depending on what you want to add. Our next tab that we would use would be the Design tab. And so that one is where you get your theme options and stuff like that, where you could change your colors. If you get a little into the file or the project and you decide you want to change it, you can change it under that Design tab. That's going to have all of your theme related settings. Okay, and then in transitions, so say we have multiple slides and we want to add transitions to them. I'm going to add some slides, so I'll go into Insert, New Slide, and I'm going to do it a few times. So now I have 5 slides, and if I have all my content in here already, I can click the first slide, and you see it will highlight it with the box around the first slide on the thumbnails on the left. And then I can hold down the Shift key, and then click the 5th slide, and you see that that highlights all of the slides together. So then I can bulk apply transitions to all of my slides at one time. So say, since I'm under transitions, I can just click wipe. So now that's applied to all of my slides, the same transition. If you don't want all of your slides to be the same, you can just select 1 slide or 2 slides. If you want to skip on your transition, say on slide 2 and slide 4, I want to add a different one, I can hold down the Command key or the Windows key, depending on if you're using a Mac or a Windows computer. And then it will not select 2, 3, and 4, it will select 2 and 4 if I hold down Command. So if I want to select things in a row, I hold down Shift. If I want to pick and choose what I'm selecting and it not be in a consecutive order, then I hold down Command. So now that I have...
Again, it's Control on your Windows machines.
Yeah. And so now you can see I have selected 2 and selected 4, and I can do that as cut, or maybe I'll do shape for that one. You do have effect options over here on the right to where you could customize the transition as well. If you chose, you can also further customize it by the duration, so you can make the transition shorter or longer. So say I want to do 2.8 seconds, that's going to be a really long transition. So, but maybe you feel like it's going too fast, you can make it a little bit longer if you want to. Okay, next tab on the top is animations. So animation controls the order and style that objects will enter or exit your slide with. So say I have my sample title here, and I say, this course is great, and we love PowerPoint. All you have to do is click in those boxes, and then you can start typing right away. But I can select, if you hover over, it's called the bounding box. So that's the square that shows up around a section. You hover over that, and you can see the 4 cross arrows. So if I click, now I can see all these white dots. That means that that is selected. And I can change, since I'm under animations, I can give that box an animation. So I just gave that one dissolve in. And you see how it has a number 1. That's going to be the first one to show. Now I can do the same thing. I wait till I have my 4 cross arrows, and I click that box. And I can say appear. Or we'll do blinds so you can see it better. And now that has a number 2. So we'll see as we go through the slides, fancy, yeah. So we'll see as we go through the slides that we've added those different animations. So a transition is for the slide as a whole, where an animation is for the different elements within a slide. Does that make sense? Yeah, okay. So our next tab in our ribbon that we're going to talk about is the slideshow tab. So this we'll commonly use when we've kind of finished our presentation and we want to go present it. So you have a few different options as far as your slideshow goes when you're ready to present. Typically, what I like to do is the presenter view. So for our last training that we did, I used the presenter view. So you can see we had that transition in. And then now, as we click through, we should, okay, so we had our first transition. I'll show you again. So you see it had that different effect on that first box. And because it was number 1, it's the first one that came in. Now if I click again, now I have the blinds animation on the second box, and it's the second one that came in. So if you don't want to show your entire slide right from the bat, you can add in the animations and show it piece by piece so that people aren't reading ahead of what you're talking about, or if you're giving a presentation like that. I know a lot of times your slides in PowerPoint are used for your announcements and things like that, so we can talk about that too and what that might look like. But this is most of the time used for presentations, so that's a really helpful tool to know about. Also, on your presentation view, I don't know if I can, is it recording my actual computer screen? Okay, so on my presentation view, this is what I'm looking at as the presenter. And so what's nice about it for me is that it shows the time of how long I've been presenting. So as the presenter, if you know you only have 5 minutes to give your presentations of 7 slides or something like that, then you'll know when your 5 minutes is up. Or say you have 5 minutes and 5 slides, then you can use this to know that every minute you need to be keeping on pace and going to the next slide. So if you know your time and you know your amount of slides, then you can keep track with the timer up at the top. So then this is your main slide that's showing on your projector. This is your next slide that is up next. And then if you have notes at the bottom of each slide, like for last week, I had notes on the bottom of every single slide. So I was able to refer to my notes right on the screen without looking at something different or just trying to remember it. So your notes can really help you keep on track. And I'll show you, you can add them in the presenter view. Like say you're reviewing your slide and you realize, oh, I want to say this on this slide. You can just tap in here, right in the presenter view, and you can start adding, editing, whatever to your notes. But we'll go back to your editing view. So I'm just going to click End Show. And I will show you. All right, so right now I'm not seeing a notes section. It's just not on here. So if there's ever a time where I'm not seeing something that I want to see, I click the View tab on that top ribbon, and then I see Notes page. Nope, that's not what I want. Normal, okay, Notes over here on the right. Okay, so you can see at the very bottom, it popped up this little section for notes. It's too small for me because I want to add a lot of notes in here. So I can just hover over that line and drag the notes section up so that, say I'm in Chrome, and let's teach people about dog facts. Okay, so 5 facts. So say I want to put some of my research in here that I've done. I can copy my facts and then come in here. So say I want to copy all that information. You can do Command-C or Control-C on your computer to copy. And then you come in here. I want to triple click it to highlight all of it. And then you can do Command-V or Control-V to paste it. So now I have all my notes pasted in there for that slide. So that's really helpful when you're wanting to give a presentation and have your notes and everything all contained within your PowerPoint. That's how you can be presenting and referring to your notes at the same time. Okay, so next in line, I wanted to show you my presentation that I did from last week and what that looked like and how I did it, because I did try to use a bit more of a graphic design look to it. So what happened was Tabby Sue actually texted me the invite that she had done, and she used like a dark gray and this aqua color or like a bright blue or something like that. And so I had already started creating the PowerPoint, but they didn't match the colors of the announcement that she had made. So I just came in here and I updated it. I updated the colors, so then it kind of looked like it was branded together, like it went together. So that's the nice thing about it, is that you can always change your colors after if you want to. Something that was really helpful to me is this design ideas on the top right. So when I was working, I had my content, but then after I typed it in, I would always try to click this design ideas and see what it came up with. So hopefully we can get it to work on this, but it's not working. Okay, so this slide in particular, I'm not sure why it's not working right now. Yeah, this slide in particular was completely designed by PowerPoint. So all I did was I typed in my content, and then under my design ideas, it gave me a bunch of different options and looks of what I could do to communicate that information. So when you're working with PowerPoint, you want to be careful not to put just a bunch of body text or a bunch of paragraphs on a slide. You want to keep the information like titles or headers or the subject of something that you're going to talk about, and then you add the rest of what you're going to talk about at the bottom in the notes. So on the slide I have logo design, but then you can see at the bottom I have what that means. Logo design means the shapes, fonts, and pictures that act as the first impression. So as I was presenting, I could quickly refer back to that. So that's kind of how you want to approach PowerPoint and your slides and things like that, is put like the summary, which would be like this. These are the summary: define your brand, design your materials, deploy your marketing. And for that one, I didn't put notes, but this you can get away with, but you'll notice it's only one sentence. So I would say one sentence is the most you would ever want to put on a slide as far as content. Otherwise, you want to stick with like the main idea, the bullet points, things like that. And the more you can use images or icons instead of like a bullet point list, the easier it is for people to understand what you're trying to communicate. Okay, so even in this, I can, when I click on the icon that it suggested to me on this format, I can come in here and I can change the words. I can add things to it. So here I just added another icon. You can, so say we'll call this the extra icon. So you can add and remove, so it's still customizable even within their special design themes and ideas for you. You can still go in and then customize it more. And then I can even like rearrange them, say I want that to go to the end really. I can push it to the end, things like that. Or if I decide I really don't need it, I just click it and I click minus, and that deletes it back. And it's already like spacing things out for you perfectly to where if you were in one of the professional programs, you would have to go and manually group things and align things and space things out, distribute them evenly. But in PowerPoint, it does it all for you. So it's a really great way to use a program that's kind of designed in this way to help you make things look really good in a quick, simple, easy way. All right, the other thing that I did is I added images. So if I want to add an image, I come up to my Insert tab and I say Picture. You have different options. You can do stock images, online pictures. I normally always do from File because that means it's going to be coming from my computer. Let's see. Do we have anything? I don't know if we don't have anything on here. Okay. Let's fix that. We're going to save as the picture. So I right-clicked it, and I'm going to save it to my downloads. Okay, so now I'm just going to insert a slide at the end. Insert new slide. Okay, I put it there. So this is a good thing to learn, though. It put it on number 7, but I want it to go to the end. All I have to do is click on the thumbnail on the left and drag it all the way to wherever I want it. You'll see that there's a divider line that appears. You can even scroll while holding down the thumbnail to go all the way to the bottom. And then you'll see I want to get it to where that orange line is underneath the last slide, and then I can drop it into place. So say I want this text box to disappear. I'm going to wait till I have my 4 cross arrows, and then I'm going to click Insert Picture from File. And when I insert the picture, it will replace that box so that I don't have to go back later and delete it. So now I'm going to say Picture 1, Insert, and you see how it removed the other box and it replaced it with this one. I also don't care to have the title on this, so I'm just going to get that 4 arrows icon, click it, and click Delete. And then if I drag my cursor up to the top left, I can make it bigger. And the bottom right, I can make it bigger, all the way to wherever I want it. Say you go like this, when you go to present, it will only show the size of the slide. So if you accidentally size something outside of your slide, it won't show. Sometimes that's good. Maybe I don't want it to say tell a story, so I would size it out. You see how I can see my line, and now I've finally pulled tell your story out of the slide shape, and then now it's taking up the whole thing. Also, when I'm clicking and dragging it, it's popping up. You can kind of see it on the yellow on top, that dotted red line. That's telling me that I'm centered on the slide. So you can use those guides, and then now it's doing a horizontal one. And it will kind of try to click and snap into centered vertically and centered horizontally. I don't want it centered vertically, so I'm just going to move it up and ignore that guide that it's telling me. So you can play around with things and kind of make it look like whatever's fitting your needs for that
Why don't you preview that and show what it actually
slide.
looks like?
Yeah. So slideshow tab, and now I'm going to click play from current slide because I wanted to show you this one, not start all the way at the beginning. So now you can see that we don't see that header of tell your story. And so we know as the creator of the slide that it's not centered up and down, but it is centered left to right. So we want that to be correct. So Now that's how it looks. So you can go outside of your slide with your images, but just know that it won't show anything outside of your slide. Does that all make sense? Yes? Does that make sense? Okay. All right, what else? So all of these slides, like this one and this one, you can see they're different formats, but they're all within the same theme. So PowerPoint is really great in the way that it helps you do those things. And something that I chose to do too was sometimes, so this slide looks like it's a left and a right, but in reality it looks like that. So I chose to give it a different look by making my image bigger. And now it looks like it's a different template, but it's not. I use that same template. Where did I put it? It's the same template as that, but it looks completely different because I made the image the full size and then I changed my alignment on my text. So this alignment is aligned to the left, whereas the top one is centered. So you can even kind of like fake different templates just by using images and making them bigger with their sizing and adjustments and stuff like that. And I would say too, you want to keep it interesting. So for last week's presentation, we had 37 slides, which is a lot of slides. So I didn't want to use the same exact slide 37 times. So when you're making it, you can see on the left my thumbnails, I don't have the same slide in a row. I don't have like two of those, one right after the other. So it's good to kind of change it up because it will keep your audience more interested if you have variety within your templates. So I tried to use those design ideas on that home right here to help me make it a little bit more creative and things like that. Oh, now it's working. Okay. So on the right, I can see I can do the same information, but maybe I want it to look like that. And it just like changes it for you. It's really awesome. Or maybe I want it to look like that. So I would definitely highly encourage you to utilize these different templates because they can look super cool with all the different things. I will say, don't go too crazy. Like you want things to still look consistent. So say we pick this style and we have 30 something slides, that's a lot of slides. Maybe we'll use it, that same style 3 times. Because remember last week we talked about repetition and how that creates good branding. So it's still okay to repeat them, just don't repeat them one right after the other. Okay, other than that, it's really like click in a box and start typing or change the content or things like that. If I have a blank slide, you can see too, when I deleted that image, it automatically put a text box back in here for me. So that is another way that it's just helping you. But say I want to add a text box, I can go to my insert because I'm inserting it, and then I click text box. And now I can click and drag and add my header text box back in there. And so then I can just type in title sample. And you can also use like all caps as somewhat of a branding. Or say I do that with all caps, I can go back to my home. I'm going to increase the font size. Maybe we do 40 or bigger. Maybe we do 48. But this looks a little plain. Something that's really easy and simple, but if you do it repeatedly over and over, it can become the branding. Is I can do Command B and make the first word bold, and that just gives you more of a unique look. So you can do simple things like that, but I would say if you do that, then do it on all of your titles. Don't just do it on one. So that means that you're going to have at least 2 words for all of your titles if you want to do a bold and a regular together. But you can look at inspiration, things like that, and find ideas like that. If you're thinking this way, then you can look at a website and be like, oh, I really like how they did the first bold and then they did not bold, and that looks really neat. And so then you can do that throughout your whole PowerPoint slide or for the whole branding of that business. So that is pretty much PowerPoint. Just an overview to get you familiar with where your tools are and how to use it. Do you guys have any questions? Yes?
So, the last time we were here, we talked about palettes.
Yes.
So, is it possible to work with the color palettes and color palettes?
Okay, great question, and I wanted to mention that. So this one in particular, Steve asked about color palettes and how we can integrate our customized color palette into PowerPoint. So this slide and theme in particular, we would come under design and we can look at the options. So this, by clicking the green, changed all of the slides. So these are the stock colors and color palettes that come with it. If you can then also go to, I click this little arrow here, and so now under the colors tab, I have that little arrow and you can see a ton of different color palettes. So what I would do is I would click customize colors, and now I can come in and enter in my Mount Kenya Baptist Church color palette specifically. So say, let's see, we should be able to click it and edit. But we can get a custom color palette set up. And so once that's set up, say this is our custom one, and we want to use this theme over and over and over again, we can go to File, Save as Template. So that means then that if I've saved it as a template, I can then share that template with everyone else on the tech team once I've set it up the first time. And then everyone will have the branded colors in their palette already, and it will default to using them without being like a little off or completely different or something like that. So we can make sure that we get you guys some template options and show you how to set up your own templates, and then that way you can share them with everyone else on the team. And then just be like, here's a template, you know, put the content in, things like that. Good question, because I wanted to show everyone that. So when you click Save as Template, say we would call it MKBC blue template. Because maybe we'll have a template that's like mostly blue, and then a different one that's mostly maroon colored, a different one that's mostly gold. They would all still have the same colors, but maybe on one the primary color is maroon, and then the other one, to change it up, the primary color is gold, and things like that. So you would just save this template as whatever you wanted to call it, and then you can actually email the templates to other people. Good question. Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah, go ahead. Yes. Lyrics, everyone struggles with that, even in America. Yeah. You're laughing at your own PowerPoint. Okay, so, yeah, so it looks like, do you have saved each song individual?
Yes, I do have each songs.
And so then for the worship set, you just say, these are my songs, and you combine them into one before Sunday. Okay, so I would say less words per slide, and then you could try to find pictures that relate to the slide or relate to the song or whatever it is. Like maybe the song mentions nature, so then you can get a nature picture that you like and let there be more of a picture and a few less words. So I would probably put half the words. Like you have 5 lines on that slide. I would try to let the words take up less space and let the picture or the background take up a little more space. And color, you know, pictures will bring in color and stuff too. And that can help to the feel of the song that you want to portray instead of just black and white or whatever it is. Or the other one was like diagonal lines. But if you want, like we talked about colors and the emotions that colors mean and bring. So maybe you want to have blue, but maybe you want it to be the ocean. And so then that's a calm, peaceful feeling if it's a calm, peaceful song. You know, things like that. So you could consider those. And then every once in a while, change the picture of that song. Like if you've done it like that for 3 months or 6 months and it's getting old, just change the background image and go and adjust your words so that it's not covering up the image poorly or anything like that. But I do think it's good to have each worship song different, because then if you have 3 songs or 5 songs or whatever, then it's not the same background, the entire worship set, you know. Is that helpful? Good. 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 Any other questions? I will say though, anyone can do this and help Steve with his worship PowerPoint. So maybe Steve could even help to assign people like, hey, here's the lyrics for this song, and to give people exercises on practicing PowerPoint. So maybe that would be a good thing to assign some homework for the week, and Steve can give people songs. Can you do that, Steve? Can you assign people a song and let them work on it and use PowerPoint if they have it, if they have access to it, and then they can submit back to you their creation. So they can look at the words, you can see what the song is like, listen to the song, and what background will you think go with that song. Put the background in, put all your words in, you can practice. Maybe you would give them some guidelines as far as the size of the font or which font you would want them to use. But that would be a good way to be able to learn PowerPoint, is by actually using it, and then it's beneficial to Steve too and the worship team. So I'm giving you homework to give everyone else homework.
I would also, one of the pieces to keep in mind for the church, so you even see the picture on the board. We're all close to the board. So in this one, that's great. But imagine now if that was the slide and you were in the very back of the church. So one of the things is you have to consider the size of your room, the size of your audience. So for the church, we have to work really hard to make sure it's legible.
Right.
So when you do that, Steve will give you, it has to be at least this font size, because any smaller than that, and we learned you can't see it.
Yeah, and especially with worship slides, you need to be as generic with the font as you can so that it's very easy for people to read. So typically, like last week, we talked about serif and sans serif fonts. So serif is with the little extra tags and everything. Sans serif is without. Which do you think would be easier to read? Any guesses? 50-50 shot. No brave people. So,
Sans serif.
yes, sans serif without the extra little tags is easier for people to read. So Steve's PowerPoint, the one that was black and white, was a sans serif font, which is good because then it's easy for people to read. So you could just tell people, use this font, use this sizing, and then they can work with how many words per slide, adding new slides, adjusting maybe the location of the slide. And then once you finish your song, go through it on your own. Say view PowerPoint, and then sit there and listen to the song and sing it and kind of click through the slides and see how you feel about it. Because you might realize that in the song, the phrasing of the song doesn't quite break up the way you broke up the words on the slide. So you might say, oh, there's a pause here, so that's where I need to go to the next slide for the words. Does that make sense? Okay. Or maybe there is no pause, but your words are out. So that would be more difficult to do. So it's always good to double check your work, whatever you do, before you give it to someone. I always do that. Anytime I'm working on a document, I'm working in Illustrator or InDesign, whatever, but then I export it as a PDF. I never just send the PDF. I always open the PDF, I look at it again. So you want to do the same thing with your PowerPoint, because 90% of the time when I'm looking at the PDF, I want to change something. And I might do that 6 times or 7 times. And just depending on what the project is, I might keep finding things that I didn't notice when I'm editing it in the program, but when I'm in the PDF or when I'm in the slideshow version and there's nothing else distracting me, I see, oh, that's not centered. I need to go back and center that. So do that before you send it to Steve. You always want to be proud of your work. You always want to do the best that you can. So don't be afraid to just review your work before you send it. Like, make that a part of your practice to do that.
Yeah, I do the same. Like if I'm using the PowerPoint during the sermon, the way that I proofread is I do the whole PowerPoint, then I go to presentation mode.
Right.
And if you're not plugged into a projector, then it'll show it full screen on the computer.
Mm-hmm.
And I click through because you all of a sudden notice something is out of line or it's too close to the edge of the screen.
Mm-hmm.
And you didn't see that when you had a lot of other stuff around it, but when it's isolated.
Mm-hmm.
So I do my spelling check in there, but I also, it's the same, it's a great way to check the formatting.
Yeah.
And make sure that everything actually looks the way you want it as it is presented.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, it's just such a great way that everyone can get involved and be serving and volunteering and helping Steve with things, because his job is a lot of work. So the more we can do to help support him in that, the better. And the more we're being a part of the body and working for the church. So
Steve likes the sound of that.
yeah.
Yeah, the other thing it does is you are actually doing a presentation, right? So if you're doing worship, you're sending it in, and then, but if you were doing something for work or for business and you're presenting, every time you go through those slides, you're practicing. And so as well, I'm the same way. I'll go through, I'll make edits, I'll go through again, I'll make edits, and I'll keep going through until I don't have any changes. So now I've gone through it 5 or 6 times. Now I actually have my presentation memorized better, so that now when I'm preaching, I don't have to keep looking at the slides because I already
Are familiar.
I'm already really familiar with them. So it's really great for that too.
Yeah, and that's a good point. Even with the PDF, I'll go in, I'll change the things that I saw, re-export it. I don't go and send it again. I look at it as a PDF again and see if I can find anything else that I need to tweak. And that's why I do it 5 or 6 times sometimes if it's a really big document, because I just keep seeing little tiny detailed things. But if you catch the detailed things, that's where your work becomes excellent, is in the details. Anybody can throw in some slides and throw in some stuff, but if you really want to be excellent and good at what you're doing and able to help, in your business, in your job, in your church, then it's catching those details so that someone else doesn't have to do it. So the more details that you catch, the nicer that you make it, the easier it will be to help the people around you or whoever you're sending it to. So last week I actually stopped at 5:30. It's 5:45 now, so.
We've been doing questions. I wonder if you have enough time to give them a little assignment, do this, do that, so they put it to practice some of the.
Well, that's what I was thinking with Steve with the songs. Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, that's what they're going to use it for mostly on church too. But I will say, you want to practice downloading the image that you like. Use that link, that Unsplash that I've told you about, where you can get the stock-free, royalty-free images. So I'll just show you. Oh, that's the wrong thing. Okay.
Yeah, well, Kelsey's pulling that up. The other place that PowerPoint is really useful is for making basic flyers and basic slides. So if you're presenting something or doing a video and you want an introduction, you can as well create it in PowerPoint, export it as a picture file, which we could go over in a second, and then that's your flyer. And let's say you're helping organizing an event. You're doing something, you have a passion for a ministry or the dyslexia stuff or whatever it might be, and you want to promote something, you can create a PowerPoint slide, and now it's easier to create something that's more visually attractive. Because what do we normally go to? We go to Microsoft is great for lots of text, but when you want pictures and images and colors that really bring people in for a poster, PowerPoint can sometimes be the better program for that. You know, there's more advanced stuff, but for beginners,
Or Publisher too.
yep, it's really great for that. And then that way, and Kelsey mentioned Publisher, it's another Microsoft program, and as she said, the ribbon is the same. So the functionality, the way you insert stuff, change fonts, add colors is very similar across those programs. So that gives you a great way to then create something that's really visually appealing that you can then print out, you can then send through WhatsApp to promote what you're trying to do and make it a little bit nicer than just going on WhatsApp and typing out, hey, we have a meeting at this time. Like you see already, as we've had these trainings, Kathy Sue's gone on and say, here's a quick flyer and sends that out.
Exactly, yeah.
It's really nice that way.
Yeah, totally. And so I'm just showing an example. I came onto unsplash.com. They have a whole category of nature photos. I feel like there's songs talking about the ocean and stuff like that. So I downloaded an ocean picture. So now we're going to come back into PowerPoint. And we'll go back to the bottom. We'll just delete this stuff so it's out of our way. So we can click insert and from file and find it that way, or I can just click and drag it in, which is often easier and what I would prefer to do. So now I'm just resizing it so that it takes up the entire image. You can, whoops. I'm gonna check on, why is it doing this? I'm trying to right click. Okay. Okay, so for this instance, I want to see where my slide ends because I want to know where my picture's at. So I right-clicked the image and I'm going to click crop. And you can see there's these black lines. If you scroll too far, it goes to the next slide. All right, so crop. Scroll up barely. All right. And then I can see this top line at the bottom. So I want to bring this down so that I can only have it go to the end of the slide. So when I get to there, you can see the dotted line appears. So that's my guide showing me that that's the end of the slide. And I know that I already aligned it on the other sides. So now I can just click off of it. And it's still showing me both, but at least now it's showing me a line at the top. You can see it on here. You can see it better on the computer, but it didn't have a line before, so I had no idea where this slide actually ended. So technically, I could have put text over it and been off of the slide and not known it. So now, at least on mine, I can see it all the way across. You can kind of see it here. So now at least I know where the end of my slide is. So
that's a great example where doing your final edit in the preview view helps you catch those mistakes. If you forget, oh, the picture was off of the slide, you might align to the picture, then it's off. But when you preview, you'll catch it.
So one of the design things we talked about was contrast, right? So say I'm going to do a flyer for something like Andrew was talking about. I don't want to put text directly over this image because there's too much going on the image. No matter what text I put on here, I'm not going to be able to easily read it. So I'm going to go into insert, and I want to insert a shape. Let's see, I don't want smart art. Okay, shapes at the top in my ribbon, and I'm going to click the square, and now I'm going to click and drag. So right now it's actually defaulting to the theme that I already have selected. Because I don't want it to be green, I'm just going to click black and it will change it. And you can do a custom change, like say I want it to kind of go with the ocean waves. I can do a custom color there. And now I'm going to go back and insert a text box. And I'm going to click and drag within that square that I already created. And I will say, worship training, and I'm going to center it. So I triple click to highlight it. I'm going to go back to home and click center. Maybe I want to do that thing we talked about, and I'm going to make worship bold. And then I'm going to go ahead and make it a bit bigger. So now I'm going to wait till I have that 4 arrow signal. You can kind of see it on there. I clicked it and I dragged it, and now it's showing me my 2 guides, the vertical guide and the horizontal guide, telling me that I'm completely centered on that shape that I just created. So you always want to check your stuff to make sure that it's aligned properly. So I can click and drop it when my guides show up and I know that it's in the right spot. And then we've talked about repetition. I'm going to click on the box, on the shape. I'm going to hold down Option, which would be, and then I click and drag and it copies it when I'm holding down Option. What would that be on a PC? Oh, it is Alt though. Alt and Option. Okay, so maybe it's Alt. So most of the time on any programs, if you hold down that key, Alt or Option, you click something and drag it, it's going to duplicate it for you. So I didn't want to have to click Insert, click Shape, click and drag another size, and maybe not get the width the same as the other one, and then have to go change the color again. So instead of like 10 clicks, and probably getting it wrong, I can click on the box above it, and then now my width is exactly the same, my color is already selected, it's already aligned with it, and then I can just adjust it as needed. So now I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing with the text box. Hold down Option, click and drag it down, and then the only thing I'm going to do here is I'll change the font size. So maybe we'll say for everyone interested in joining the worship team, and then we'll say it's on February 14th, and we'll say it's at 6 p.m. and we'll say it's at Mount Kenya Baptist Church, something like that. Okay, so now I'm going to take all of this, Command or Control B is going to make it not bolded anymore. And then I'm going to click this and do Command I or Control I. That's going to make it italics. So it's okay to break things up a bit. And I'm just going to make the font a little bit smaller, because say this is like a postcard handout. You know, I don't want it to be 12 point or something like that. I want it to be like easy to read as you're passing by. So now the thing that I see is that I have a second line and there's only one word on it. So all I'm going to do is come up to maybe here and click Enter. And so that breaks it up a little bit more evenly, a little more balanced, so the alignment is better. And then maybe I'll do another Enter to bring that down. So now I have my flyer, pretty easy and simple. You could also add, obviously, a logo to it, or maybe you would add only the icon or something like that, depending on if it's going to people only in your church or if it's going outside your church. If it's going outside the church, I would definitely put the entire logo on it, but if it's within the church, you could get away with just putting the icon only. So now we're going to go File, and we will click Export, and we're only going to export slide 38. I'm going to click JPEG because I want it as an image, and I'm going to click Save Current Slide Only. So that's going to be my slide 38 that I'm selected on right now. And then this is your resolution settings. So 720 is like the base screen size that you would want to do. If we wanted to do like more high resolution, we can type in 1920, and that's going to be a better resolution image. And I will save it to our desktop and click Export. So now it's going to export that slide as an image. that I could share with other people, or, I could email it to myself and then text it in WhatsApp, things like that. So now we can see this image. Now we have our promotional thing. And it's good quality. It's nice and clear and crisp, simple, clear, to the point. You know what the main point is. You know it follows it and supports it. Stuff like that. Any questions? So much great information, huh?
Well, I can say I've been using PowerPoint for the last 20 years and I learned something today. On some of the shortcuts and some of the new features, so this was helpful. It is recorded, so you probably will want to go back and watch it again and be able to pause it and try something and give it a go. But this kind of gives you an overview. But you saw what it took 3-4 minutes to create a nice looking flyer. So it really speeds up the work and allows you to create something that's visually appealing once you get down the basics of the program.
Yeah, and I would say too, most people have a tendency to clutter things. Don't clutter things. Don't clutter the design. Check your design and say, are all of the words, is every single word on here absolutely necessary? If it's not, take it off. Because you want things to be clear and concise. The more information you put on there doesn't always mean the better. So I would say that's a common tendency that you want to try to avoid as you're creating new designs and things like that. But, yeah. A sample song? Yeah. Okay, what song? What is it? What? My Worship, Phil Thompson. Okay. Okay, I need to listen to this song because I don't actually think I know it. So you'll see the whole process. If it will stream. Will it stream? Should. Okay, so I'm going to open up a new tab while that's loading and try to get the lyrics. Phil Thompson? Okay. Oh, maybe we could just play it. No. Well, it probably won't play it, will it? Okay. So I'm just reading through the lyrics. That's not going to work. No. Okay. All right, so as I'm looking through the lyrics, I'm looking for like keywords that would maybe give me some ideas for an image. So I'm noticing, obviously, worship is used many times in the song. So we could go to Unsplash again. Okay, so now I'm just going to type in worship and see what happens, or if I see anything I like. Okay, so these are good backgrounds, multiple good backgrounds. Okay, if I want to just keep brainstorming, I see there's the word breathing. And that's pretty much the only other like keyword I would see maybe. There is silent, but I can't think of what an image would represent that. So here's our worship pictures. Say we're not like totally thrilled with it. We can also type in breathing and see what images come up. Okay, we don't like those at all. We don't like any of those. Okay, so we're going to go back to worship. So it's okay to like type in a couple different topics and just see what you like best. Like you don't always have to go with the first thing that you find. So as we look through these, I want to pick a background because I'm putting words on it that is going to be a little bit simple of a background. I don't necessarily want, like you see on this one, the hand is like right in the middle. Well, I want my words in the middle, so that's not going to be a good background image for it because it's going to get in the way of the words. Typically for a background, I'm going to want low contrast, so very similar colors across the whole background so that I can create the contrast with the text. So for instance, this one of the hands is very high contrast. So you would think, okay, the background's black, I want to use white words. Well, then when the white words are over the hand, you're not going to be able to see them. Does that make sense? So you want an image with very little change. So let's say this one is kind of nice. We like it. Kind of looks like those are maybe crosses, something like that. Kind of has mountains, so that's relatable to us. So we're just going to say download free. It always pops up with this say thanks thing. You don't have to do that. It just gives credit. Yeah, but because we're on Unsplash, everything is free. So we don't have to put that at the end or anything like that. Okay, so I think it is downloaded. So I'm going to go ahead and just create a new PowerPoint. File, new presentation. And it opened up as a blank one. If I wanted to use a template, I would have had to do File, New from Template. But I don't want that, so I did this. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is delete this. And I will kind of create my own base template. So I click and drag my image in. I'm going to drag it to the corner over there. And I think, okay, yeah. This program does not allow you to distort images, so that's good.
If you use the corner, it doesn't distort, but if you use the sides,
Oh, okay. So when you are resizing your images, always drag from the corner. If you drag from the sides or the top or bottom, it will distort it, which is obviously not what you want. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and do crop. And I'm going to drag down the top so that it's in line. Okay, and then now I'm going to go ahead and insert my text box. Click and drag. And I only really want my words to go there. So you do want to leave enough margin around the edges. So be aware of that. And now I can come back to my words, which are somewhere. Which are on Safari. Okay. So now I'm going to click and drag, Command or Control C, come into PowerPoint. I only clicked and dragged the first two lines. Do you know, Steve, what text size you normally use? Too big. Okay. What do you think? Does that look like that would be good? Okay. So
I my sermon PowerPoint, I like to be 64:58. I do minimum
Okay, I feel like that maybe is a little bit better.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay, so,
The Irish try and get in that 60 range right there.
okay, so I'm going to click it and drag it to the center until my guides appear. So now that I have my first slide created, I'm not going to create the slide all over again for every single slide. I'm going to come over to my thumbnails, hold down Option or Alt, and drag. And now I have my second slide. I can do that a bunch of times. Okay,
The other way you can do it is click on the slide, Control C, which is copy, and then Control V. If you can get the alt matrix and you can paste a bunch of slides on the side.
yeah.
Another thing you want to consider, especially when you're working with a projector that you don't know, is Kelsey mentioned, right, making sure you have enough margins. You want to avoid putting text on the edges because the projector might actually end up being a different aspect ratio and cropping off the sides.
Right. Okay, so now what I just did is that I highlighted it on my second slide and I did Command V for paste. That doesn't help me. So Command Z or Control Z is undo. So I undid it and then I went into Edit, Paste and Match Formatting. So now I can just click and drag up till that one's centered. But that way, like the font size, the font, everything then is the same as the previous slide. So basically, it's just a matter then of going back and forth and copying, pasting. So, all right, now I can see that for the chorus, it's the same 2 lines repeated. Okay, 4 lines repeated twice. Okay, so I can just copy those, come to my third slide, select in the text box, Command A for all, edit, paste, and match formatting. And then what I'm going to do too, because it's repeated twice, the person could stay on the slide, but the person doing the slides probably might not know that. So copy and paste. So now this slide 3 is highlighted. I can just take that one, Command C, Command V, and now there's the second part of my chorus. And then you can also do that, like normally worship songs go verse 1, chorus, verse 2, chorus, verse 3, chorus, bridge, whatever. So you can just come back, and we learned about shift, right? So we'd come back to slide 3 and 4, click on slide 3, hold down shift, Command C, go back down to wherever you need to paste the chorus again, Command V, and then you have your chorus again. So just a matter of that. But you can see like each slide only has a maximum of 4 lines. So I would kind of just try to keep it like that. And then the words are always going to be centered on the top and bottom and centered on the horizontal too. So now if I want to go to slideshow, play from start, we can kind of preview through and just make sure that our alignments are right, it's looking right, and see how the transitions go between them. And we actually don't have any transitions on the slide. So now that we're previewing that, we notice it. So now we can come back, we can end the show, go back into editing. We can click on the thumbnails, and now that it knows that we're clicking on the thumbnails, we can do Command A to select all of our thumbnails, and then we can click Transitions, and we can click Fade. All right, so now let's see what that looks like. Now that we tweaked it a bit, we can go back into slideshow, play from start. So that's normal for that to happen. You come back, you edit something real quick, now let's go back and preview it again and see what else we catch. So now that's a little bit nicer. Instead of being so choppy, it's a little bit nicer of a transition.
If you transition on worship songs, use short transitions. Because what you don't want is the guy in the back is hitting next, and it's already on to the next lyrics, and it's still fading in. So
Yeah, you don't want that. Which again,
nice and simple.
Yeah, that's good. Like if you, when you guys go home and do the homework of creating the worship slides, that's why I want you to sing it yourself with the song, with the slides, because then you would catch things like that. You would realize like, oh wait, I'm supposed to be on the next words and I clicked it at the right time, but it's still not showing. So that's again why it's so good just to check your work before you submit it.
Yep. So I would say another note, as Steve gives out the assignments, 66-point font
Yes.
or 72. So this is 66, but that's going to be legible from the back of the.
Okay, but I would say you should keep all of your songs the same.
Yep. So 66-point font.
Yeah.
66-point font.
But
Unless
maybe-
unless you check other worship stuff
Yes.
you're doing and see something different.
Verify that with Steve. Like you can check it on the slide or on the projector. You'll know what's best. So let Steve tell you for sure what point size to use, but I would use the same on all of them. And then just keep it simple to where there's only a couple lines per slide. So it's not too much in one slide. Is that helpful, Steve?
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
That makes it look like something else.
Yeah, you can do a lot on PowerPoint.
So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Good. So I'm going to post some.
Something that you when you're using PowerPoint is that preview, you can preview the next.
Yes, like when you're presenting. Yes, so I can't show it to you on the projector, but if I click presenter view in the top ribbon section, then it will show you the current slide and the next slide. So it is helpful, like for example on the chorus, the person doing the PowerPoint would know, okay, the second section is here. Like they would know not to stay on the same one because we have the second one already prepared for those repeated lines on the chorus.
And
So that is very helpful.
And this is well for worship. You see even more slides along the bottom. And there's another mode that you can click into that shows all your slides, which is helpful if you get off from the worship team. For whatever reason, they're on the third chorus and you're on the third verse and you're on the second, then you can easily find the slide you're missing and click to it.
Click to it, yeah.
And the nice thing is, you're seeing this, but everybody in the audience is seeing just the one slide. So they don't know you're searching around and frantically trying to find
The correct
the
spot.
correct spot.
Because sometimes your worship team goes off and does whatever they want. So then, I mean, I'm sure that never happens here. Right, Steve? But that is helpful in case you are scrambling, then you can, scroll through the slides to get back on track with the worship team. How do you see this? Yeah, on that top ribbon, on the top, I think it will show in here. So on this top section under slideshow, you click presenter view. Yeah, and then that's what makes it look like that on your screen, but the full slide on the projector screen.
Yeah, and play around with it. If you have the ability to plug your computer into like a TV, do that, because you'll see there's even other options and other ways to format the screen that, depending on what you're presenting and how you want it to look, those can be really, really useful.
Yeah,
So that presenter mode is actually a really nice thing to be able to play around with.
for sure.
But I'm pretty sure it has to be plugged into a secondary screen to
I think you're right.
pop up right. So
Yeah.
If you have a TV and you have an HDMI cable plugged into your computer, and off you go.
Yeah.
Good.
Good questions, guys.
Well, I think why don't we wrap it up there?
Yeah.
Let me go ahead and close us with a word of prayer and thanks for the day.